The Hangout on Air is now live. Hi, everybody. This is Sound Booth Theater Live. Thanks for joining. See, I forgot to get our chat ready, so I'm going to do that right now. Today, we are joined by Mr. Neven Iliev, right?
Hello.
Is that right? Did I get
No,
that
it's
right?
not. You were lied to.
God damn it. Okay. Neven Iliev? Iliev?
Iliev.
Iliev. Okay. Neven Iliev is here with us to make sure that I do his reading exactly right. He will not tolerate any mistakes today. And we are also going to be doing Gunmeister Online by Noah Barnett, who has already actually hired, he already wants us to do his audiobook. And we're actually going to have Annie Ellicott do the narration for it. And I'm really excited because it's going to be her first narration, but she's so natural at it. I'm just excited to see what she can do for her first time. And so Noah's already heard her narrate. So, I mean, he's the one who chose her. This is going to be a great audiobook. The book itself has sold really well already. And it's kind of a thing that I've not done before. It's kind of a romance take on the genre, but still, harem and violence stuff going on. I'm excited about it. And then Dragon Seed. We're doing Dragon Seed today by James Osiris Baldwin. Now, James got in touch with me through ACX maybe a month ago, and he was asking me if I was available. And I told him, not personally, but we got Justin James for him. And I haven't heard back, but he did request on the poll. So maybe he's waiting for that. Unfortunately, Justin's not going to be here. So I'm going to kind of just do a cock tease read where he can't he can't have me do the audiobook anyway. But hey, I'm glad to do it because it looks like the book's doing well. I think that I'm blanking on his name. Ramon really loved this book. People are talking about how good the mechanics are and everything, how in depth the actual game of it is. So that'll be a thing. Wait, I've been forgetting to share screen with you guys. I'm like switching these tabs and it doesn't even matter. Let's see. There we go. This one. Okay, that's not the right one. Here we go. Dragon Seed. Yeah, it's doing reasonably well. He's already got the sequel planned, ready to go. We'll see. I hope he's around to watch, or at least that he'll watch the replay. Sorry. And then let's see. Gunmeister. You guys have to see this cover for Gunmeister. It's so great. So great. Look at the pretty lady. With a, what is that, an M16? I think that's an M16.
Sexy ladies on the car. That's a thing I should do.
Yeah, I think so. Especially one cuddling a deadly weapon. That's like pretty damn hot. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I'm very excited for Annie to tackle that one. And also, we're going to be reading from Morningwood. And as I said, Neven is here to hang out with us while I read it. And make sure to go pick up Fizzle Sprocket, guys. And I am giving away 5 audiobooks today, by the way. So if you guys want a copy of Fizzle Sprocket, you should just request that in the chat. Jeffception. Yes, that's exactly what just happened. And at the end of the stream, we're going to do a little short story that Charles Dean wrote. And I've only read a little bit of it, but it was already very disturbing. So I'm excited to do that as well. So let's get started here. Okay. All right, back to normal.
That moment when you stare into infinity.
All right, so we are going to start with Morningwood. Now I gotta find the spot. Did I already? It may not be on my Kindle anymore. I may have to go. No, there it is. I found it. All right. So, do you remember? Do you remember what part this is? Chapter 2, Eat and Grow, or Chapter 3, The Sweeper?
It's the sweeper. I think it's the second or third part.
Okay.
Yes, the second one towards the end. Second half of the second one.
Okay. Part 2, The Mimic made a decision. Nope, that's not it. Part 3, Lalandros. Okay, nope, it must be the beginning of Chapter 4. Oh, no. No, never mind. Never mind. I was looking at the wrong one. Part 3? No. Part 4, maybe. Party of 5 were making their way through the thick forest. There it is. Okay, so this request was for, there's an ambush scene. I'm trying to remember what they called it in the request, but I knew exactly what they were talking about when they asked. Let's see. They called it the subjugation quest scene. That's right. So yeah, this is where we find out about Zira's. Well, I guess this is like where we first meet Zira before we even know about his ability to summon demons, really. So, yeah, this is one of my favorite parts of the book. I wonder how long it is. It's pretty long, but I think it's short enough for this stream. We'll see. I'm gonna get started. A party of 5 were making their way through the thick forest. 2 armed guards. I already messed up. Second sentence. 2 armed guards led the way, while 3 adventurers followed them. They were 1 out of 4 groups searching the forest for the sweeper that had appeared recently. Really? What was Sarge thinking? Complained Mark. Harold frowned at him in response. The sergeant knows what he's doing. We need those 3's abilities, but they didn't have a vanguard. That's our job. Oh, I know that. I can't really trust people that easily. Especially that rogue. He won't even tell us his name. Harold shrugged lightly. Harold shrugged lightly and looked over his shoulder, where the other 3 were following. Hey, buddy! What do we call you? The tall, slender man, who was wrapped head to toe in blackened leather, turned his gaze towards Harold. Buddy works, he said casually, and I don't reveal my name because of guild policy. Occupational hazard, they call it. I'm sure you understand. Harold turned back towards his colleague with a smirk. There, see? He's Buddy. Very funny, Harold. Buddy was part of an adventurer guild called the Dark Hand. They didn't let anyone join unless they met the minimum requirements. Level 5 rogue main job with at least level 2 stealth skill. It was a den of thieves, spies, and assassins. Mark wondered how such a thing could possibly be legal, and while the general populace like himself might doubt it, that guild was completely legit. There was a very high demand for their services, after all. A rogue could disarm or set traps, pick locks, scout ahead under stealth, and murder the ever-living shit out of monsters. All things that were necessary in dungeons. Even once the battle started, they made themselves useful by keeping the enemy off balance. Smoke bombs, poisoned daggers, throwing knives, and all manner of other dirty tricks and tools made them reliable allies in many situations. I love murder the ever-living shit out of monsters. Like, your plays on murder are, like, some of my favorite things to read.
I mean, it's mentioned so many times, you have to spice it up somehow.
Exactly. Someone's asking me, Jeff, when will you do Life Reset Book 2? When it's ready. You know what? You can't rush an author's brilliance. All right? So please be patient. It will be good, I promise. We already got Lori Catherine Winkle doing a character in it. And so yeah, more sound booth theater juggling of actors fun. I don't know. What do you
That is not a word.
juggling of actors fun?
Oh, I thought you said juggling.
Juggling. I could be a new word for specifically juggling actors. I'll use it. Buddy was a particularly promising recruit. He was a level 21 rogue and level 6 alchemist. Choosing an artisan job for a side job might seem weird, but being able to brew his own potions and poisons was a huge help. Plus, the alchemist job and its related skills all raised dexterity, perception, and, to a lesser degree, endurance. A rogue could make good use out of all three of those attributes. The downside was that artisan-type jobs took a long time to train, but it was still a side job that matched perfectly with his main job. His status aside, he also looked the part. The tight leather bodysuit fit snugly around his arms, torso, butt, and thighs. While such armor couldn't really ward off blows, a rogue who was expecting to get hit was already a failure in his book. That's why his gear amplified his agility, allowing him to dodge and evade rather than block and parry. His head was completely hidden. A hood and mask covered everything but his shifty eyes and sharp ears. Although exposing his ears did help a bit with his hearing, the main reason he did that was to show he wasn't an elf. He had nothing against those people personally. If anything, he was a fan of elven women. However, a significant part of his clientele were humans who hated elves. They would trust the rogue more once they saw his ears weren't pointed. I need to ask, I haven't ever asked this, and it's another one of my favorite things about your books. Why do you call them jobs instead of classes?
Because I wanted to call them something that isn't classes.
Is that it? Is that it? I mean,
that's basically it. I just wanted to be original and special, and once I was stuck with it and realized it was horrible, yeah.
how's it horrible? It's the best. It's one of the best things. It like I don't know. It kind of it's as if you're making fun of classes by calling them jobs.
I mean, I kind of am. I mean, if you think about it, like when you go into a game, you see the warrior class. That's not his class. That's his fucking job.
Yeah, classes are that's like a hierarchy, right? Like
Yeah, exactly.
Middle class, high class, lower class. I agree.
I mean, let's say they were classes. How can you be a high class mage if mage yourself is a class?
You gotta have really well stitched robes. You have to take them to the dry cleaner, once every few days because adventuring is a dirty job, but you gotta look good.
And now you got me imagining how dry cleaning with magic would work.
Yeah, what job of magic user would do dry cleaning?
I want to say pyromancer.
Pyromancer, because they
he just burns all the suit away, along with the clothes.
Yeah, the clothes would be gone. He wouldn't be that great. Maybe he's boiling the water. That's not dry cleaning. I don't know.
It's fine. You just put like fire resistance on your gear and you'll be fine.
But the thing that irked Mark the most was the rogue's personality. Here they were, hunting a dangerous monster in the middle of the forest, and what was that shady guy doing? I may be an honorable thief, but I believe it is your piercing stare that has stolen my heart. He was hitting on the sole female in the group, the witch, Zira. For the past half hour, no less.
Ah, that's so sweet of you to say.
she replied while blushing lightly. You don't have to play. Wait, which one is the rougher one, Mark? I think Mark's the high-pitched one, isn't he?
Yeah.
You don't have to play along with that, screamed, sorry. You don't have to play along with that, screamed Mark inside his head. He had tried reprimanding them at first, but had to give up since they refused to listen to him. He let out another sigh. In his eyes, that Zero woman was the root of the problem. The way those bright blue eyes darted all over the place while her mouth hung open was the telltale characteristic of a natural airhead. Her face was alluring, to say the least, and her waist-length blonde hair made her ooze with feminine charm. Her long, navy blue robe dragged slightly along the ground behind her. It had massive slits on either side of the skirt part, which exposed her long legs all the way up to the hip. The light fabric left her shoulders, collarbone, and back bare, while wide sleeves ran the length of her arms. The fact that this ridiculous outfit even stayed in place was nothing short of a miracle. Then there was the completely outrageous cleavage. Her beasts. Her breasts were absolutely massive, almost as large as her head, and swayed obscenely with every step. They pressed dangerously against the thin, low-cut garment. It was almost as if they were trying to rip it apart from the inside. If one had keen eyesight, they would be able to notice the subtle outline of her nipples, which hinted at her lack of upper body underwear. In short, she looked like a total bimbo. Her appearance and behavior were completely at odds with her claim of being a level 27 warlock. Mark wanted to question if that was really the case, but he knew better. Everyone here had submitted to a basic appraisal check to prove they fit the minimum requirements for this quest. Questioning his superior's ability like that would just earn him a week of cleaning toilets. At least the last member of his group was reasonable. I can't remember how I pronounce this guy's name. Koros?
I think it was Karas.
Koros? Okay. Koros was a level 21 priest. No side jobs. Side jobs. I just love the plain language of it. He wore sensible white robes with delicate golden embroidery around the wrists, heart, and waist, garb typical of those in service to the gods. He had a thick, dignified beard and mustache. What? How? It's like I couldn't decide how to pronounce that word before I started. He had a thick, dignified beard and mustache that went down to his stomach. His bald head seemed to gleam unnaturally in the sunlight. Karas was also well built, hinting that the steel mace on his hip was not just for show. He wasn't without fault, though. Karas was a dwarf, and like most dwarves, traveling with him came with two very specific problems. The first one was that he was short. His stubby legs meant he had His stubby legs meant he had trouble keeping up with the others and had to constantly half-jog after them. The second issue was that dwarves were really weak to the lure of alcohol. Karas was no exception. He would occasionally bring out a hip flask from inside his robe and take a swig from it. It was fine, though. Dwarves were of stout constitutions and needed a lot more than that to get tipsy. All things considered, the guy who reeked of whiskey seemed way more reliable than the shifty rogue and the ditzy witch. Just as Mark had rebuilt his focus on the path ahead, Zira suddenly let out an embarrassed, "No!" There was the sound of a slap and a yell of pain from Buddy. "Ugh! I can't do that sort of thing with you," she continued while covering her face with both hands. It seemed that Buddy had pushed his luck a little too far. "Will you cut that out? This is enemy territory," shouted Mark. He couldn't take it anymore. Was this the sort of attitude adventurers had while on the road? Yes, actually, this was more or less how those people behaved while in transit. A guard living in a relatively peaceful city like Monatal would have no idea how stressful adventuring could get once you approached level 30. If these people didn't let off steam regularly, they'd implode. "What's your problem, man?" said Buddy while rubbing his cheek. That slap from earlier had more power behind it than it looked. "I'm properly keeping an eye out, you know." I'm properly keeping an eye out, you know. Like hell you are, shouted Mark. Sighed the rogue. This was why he hated working with civilians. Fine, let me prove it. He took out a small, straight knife from his belt and threw it up and to his right. It cut through the air without making a sound before hitting something in the branches of a tree. He then pulled deftly on the almost invisible steel wire, reeling the knife back into his hand. It had cleanly skewered a small brown squirrel. My perception is really good. See? My ears alone can detect anything trying to sneak up on us. They could even beat a level 4 stealth skill, you know? Mark blinked a few times, processing what just happened. That man behind him had just hit a small target some 20 meters away without so much as looking at it. Okay, I don't know how to pronounce Che here when he clicks his tongue.
It's
He clicked his tongue. All right, you win. Just keep it down, will you? Harold expected this much already, but he too was impressed. Karas was in his drink at the moment, so he missed the display entirely. Zira, however, had a different opinion on the matter.
That poor fuzzy thing, she wailed. How could you? You there, Shorty. You're a priest, right? Can you heal this little guy?
Huh? What? Who? Blurted out the startled dwarf as he hurriedly put his flask away. Oh, a squirrel. That our lunch. Good work, lad. Thanks, old-timer, replied Buddy in good humor. But I think lunch will have to wait. I smell blood. Well, it's all over your hand there. No, not this, said the rogue before throwing the squirrel carcass to the ground. Monster blood. It's coming in from the east. My guess, about 500 meters. Uh-oh, sounds like someone else just popped in.
Hello, can you hear me?
Hey, Sen, what's up?
I'm doing all right. Taking a break from editing for just a little bit.
Cool. Let's see.
Have the others joined?
The others, no one else has joined.
Okay.
Neven's here. And
Oh, okay.
We're live.
Hello.
We're live. I'm reading from Morningwood, the scene where we first meet Zira. And,
okay.
And they ambush. Well, never mind. I don't want to give any more away. Do you want to do some narrating?
No. See,
Okay.
I don't even know why I'm here. It's not
Okay.
like I can narrate.
Well, you can comment.
I don't want to interrupt you.
Why not? It'll be fun.
Okay.
It'll be funny.
I'll hang for a little bit, and then I'll probably have to get back to work. But I'll leave the stream on, so you have.
Okay.
Well, I'll still be like watching you.
This is Sin, everybody. Sin proofs almost all of Sound Booth Theater's books, but now we have like too many, and she can't proof all of them.
No, a lot of work. That's good though.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good to have a lot of work. Uh-oh, Ray Johnson.
Are you able to see the chat? Because
yeah, I
can't.
am. There's a lot of people on today.
Oh, okay. So how are you doing that? Are you able to see it through?
There's 20 people watching right now.
I know. I saw there were like 28 earlier.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Huh.
But are you able to see it through the Hangouts, or do you have to be on the YouTube tab?
I have to be on the YouTube.
Oh, okay.
So I can't like look at you guys. Oh, I mean, Neven's not got his camera on anyway. But
okay.
I can't like Neven. I need to get used to that.
Okay. Oh.
So if you guys see anything in the chat that needs to be said, let me know, because I mean, one thing I really love about the people who watch Sound Booth Theater Live is they're almost all funny. They're almost all very funny people. So
yeah, pretty quick with the humor too.
Yeah. So if you guys see anything that needs talking about, then just bring it up. I don't mind.
Well, the thing is, I had to use another account to log in. So I'd have to go search for you on YouTube through this account to see if I can watch the chat. It wouldn't let me join the Hangouts on air on my regular one because my account's suspended because they don't like my nickname.
Oh, what's your
It's
nickname?
just Sindavaz. I didn't want to put my actual, name, so I just put Sindavaz, and so they suspended my profile, so I couldn't join this live.
Why? What is wrong with your name? What?
It's just my username, but they wanted me to use my full-on name when you know how my name is
I had
big
no
and
idea.
yeah. So I had to log in through another account, which is a nickname too, but that one's okay. I don't know.
That's weird.
I don't get it. So I'll try to find you on another tab and see if I can see what's going on in the chats.
Okay, so, all right, sorry guys. Okay, back to it. No, not this, said the rogue before throwing the squirrel carcass to the ground. Monster blood. It's coming in from the east. My guess, about 500 meters. He pointed towards the tree line to their left. And look, he continued, there's some weird markings on the trees here. Like something was trying to take a bite out of them. The group stared at the tree in question. Forget trying. Something had actually succeeded in taking a sizable chunk out of the thick trunk. And judging from those odd marks, it wasn't a stretch to say they were teeth tracks. Should we send a flare? No, that's Karas. Should we send a flare? Not yet, Karas, said Mark. We need to confirm it with our own eyes first. He and Harold both unsheathed their swords and readied their shields. Arms at the ready. We're going to check it out. Buddy pulled twin daggers from the sheath at his lower back. He took out a small vial from a pouch on his hip and applied the viscous green liquid inside it to his blades. Zira's normally vacant expression became almost unnaturally focused. He seemed like a completely different person. She reached over her shoulder and took the heavy wooden staff out of its leather sling, gripping it tightly with both hands. The rogue studied the staff curiously. The upper end of the wood curved like the letter C and had a purple crystal ball that floated inside the half-circle. It looked fancy, expensive. How come he didn't notice it earlier? Probably because it was behind Zira's back while her voluptuous breasts were, as expected, on her chest. Karas was already holding his mace in his right hand, while his left reached into his robes. Only this time, instead of a flask, he took out a small black book, the Scripture of the Sun. He went down on one knee and put the book to his forehead. He mumbled something under his breath before finishing the chant with... oh my god, it's so hard for me to shift right into Scottish. Blessing of the sun! Everyone present started glowing with a faint yellow light. A few seconds later, it faded away. You are now under the effects of Sun's Blessing. Maximum HP plus 120. The effect will last for 60 minutes or until it is overridden by another blessing. Whistled Buddy. Not bad, old-timer. Judging from these numbers, he guessed Karas to have a level 6 prayer skill. I think the most devout priest I'd ever seen around these parts would be an alcoholic. His light joke wasn't far off the mark. While the dwarf may not have had a side job, being able to devote himself fully to his god had its own merits, such as being able to focus on training the skills that really mattered, not to mention a particularly powerful perk if he became a level 25 priest with no side jobs. Ain't nothing in the scripture that says us priests can't enjoy a good drink. Ain't nothing in the scripture that says us priests can't enjoy a good drink, lad. I'm so racist when it comes to dwarves. Like, they all sound like that guy. Like that, he sounds like Brick, right? And then he sounds like the dwarf in book 2 of Everybody Loves Large Chests. What's his name?
Oh dang, I'm drawing a blank on that one.
To be fair, it's not just you. I've seen a lot of people, like, I want to say Americans generally, but I think it applies to everyone, where the minute they hear someone Scottish, it's either Shrek or Scotty from Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. But we all know that Scotsmen are actually descendants of dwarves, and so that's why dwarves all have a Scottish accent. But they all, for me specifically, I just default to the ain't nothing in the scripture that says us priests can't enjoy a good drink, lad. Like, It's I don't know. I don't know why it's so natural to go to that particular.
It's a trope. Just roll with it.
I'll just roll with it. Buddy smirked to himself. He wasn't a particularly religious guy, but he had to admit the sun god Solus was probably his favorite one. What?
Sorry to interrupt the scene. Could you mute your mic when you're not talking?
Oh, yeah. I should do that. Hold on.
Good call. There we go. Dwarves did it to themselves, Truffle says. Okay, someone says you can't help it. Lord of the Rings spoiled you. Okay, but in Lord of the let's see, what's his name? The guy
Gimli?
Gimli, yeah, but the actor's name. Shit. Jonathan Rhys Davies. He's got that deeper, hollow sound. Ain't nothing in the scripture that says us priests can't enjoy a good drink, lad. Like it's more deep. I liked his take, but for some reason it just doesn't stick in my head as the stereotypical dwarf. So racist. Okay. Buddy smirked to himself. He wasn't a particularly religious guy, but he had to admit the sun god Solus was probably his favorite one. His clergy were definitely more fun than any of the others he'd seen. Not to mention the priestesses who worshipped him always seemed to have amazing boobs. With their preparations ready, the group of 5 headed off into the lush forest. They warily crossed between trees and bushes, keeping a close eye for anything that the mimic could be disguised as. Even if it was a shapeshifter, a mimic could not shrink or drastically alter its rectangular body. This was true for both the lesser and greater species of the monster.
I have a message, Jeff.
Oh, what is it?
Danny said to check the Facebook chat.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I didn't... What Facebook? Our Facebook chat?
He said, can you please poke Jeff to check the SBTL Facebook chat?
What? You mean the group?
He says that Daniel can't... Someone said Daniel can't seem to find you on Facebook. Maybe I just need to send him the link then?
Maybe.
Are you broadcasting on Down Booth?
I'm not. I'm just on YouTube only.
Okay, well,
what?
I'll send him the link to the page or the group or...
That's weird.
I'll try to work this out in chat. I'll go ahead and mute my mic back.
Okay. Even if it was a shapeshifter, a mimic could not shrink or drastically alter its rectangular body. This was true for both the lesser and greater species of the monster. However, it could drastically change the way it looked on the surface. Along the way, they pierced and attacked several suspect rocks, 2 fallen trees, and one stump. They followed the trail of gnawed trunks and curiously chopped off tree branches. Buddy felt an odd sense of incongruity. He decided to give voice to his concerns. I think our target is inviting us in. The trail's way too obvious. Aye, that bugger's supposed to be smarter than this, right?
It's still a mimic, though, said Zero while climbing over a small ridge. Even if it became 10 times smarter than normal, it would still be as dumb as a rock.
Harold decided to chime in.
She has a point, but I'm with Buddy. This is way too suspicious.
The party moved onward carefully, watching their every step and minding their bearings. After about 10 minutes of painfully slow progress, they arrived at a clearing. Rather than a natural meadow, something had cleared out all the trees in the vicinity and turned them into about 20 small, flimsy huts. Goblins, muttered the rogue under his breath. A goblin was a monster that vaguely looked like a 10 or 11-year-old child. It had green skin, a bony physique, and exceptionally long nose, chin, and ears. Regular goblins hovered around level 10 or 15, but that was just a formality. The weak body of a goblin meant that, despite its actual level, its true strength was closer to a level 8 or 9 monster. But goblins never fought one-on-one. They attacked in great numbers and often roamed in packs of dozens, maybe hundreds of them. They often made crude villages like this one where they could breed and multiply like the vermin they were. But this village... Go ahead.
Someone wanted to join the hangout, James Baldwin.
Oh, sweet.
Can I go ahead and just post the link on the
No. We don't. We don't.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't sure. So I don't know how to send that to him. You going to do it?
Here. I don't know if he's in the chat.
He's in the YouTube chat.
Okay. If you can, here, I'll send it to Danny and
he can pass it along.
Danny,
I guess.
you pass it on.
Okay.
Where is Danny? In my chat. For anyone who doesn't know, James Baldwin is the man who wrote Dragon Seed, which will be which we will be doing a little bit later, probably next, I think. So he'll be joining us on the Hangout. But this village had already been exterminated. What the fuck? Mark was so shocked he reflexively cursed. The scenery that unfurled before him was entirely too familiar. There was blood everywhere. It painted the walls of the flimsy hovels. Bits of goblin flesh were strewn about the place. Piles of gray ash littered the scenery. But one overwhelming theme was immediately apparent. There was not a single corpse left behind. It was almost exactly like what he had witnessed firsthand in that damned dungeon. Only it looked like the monster had tried its absolute darndest to outdo itself. Since their glorious leader was currently staring slack-jawed at the scene, Buddy decided to take charge.
"Think it's hiding in here?" he whispered. "There's a lot of crappy baskets and pots around the place."
"Yeah," nodded Cross.
"Them logs around the campfire are also pretty suspect. Could be in the huts, too."
"I have an idea. I can try to smoke it out," suggested Zira.
"Won't you be wasting your MP?"
Oh no, this is probably Cross.
"Won't you be wasting your MP? I thought those ruin spells were quite costly."
"They are, but I'll be..."
No, Harold, damn it.
"Won't you be wasting your MP? I thought those ruin spells were quite costly."
"They are, but I'll be fine, Harold. I have over 1,000 MP, you know."
The men shared several glances and nodded at Zira. They moved closer to the village as a group without dropping their guard. Even for an instant. After walking closer to the edge of the village, Zira signaled everyone to stop. The witch held her staff up towards the sky and closed her eyes, and then she started chanting her spell.
"There is nowhere to hide. There's nowhere to run. This village will burn like the heart of the sun."
She chanted it clearly and purposefully, her voice echoing unnaturally.
"With infinite glee, I call upon thee."
A chill ran down the men's spines. They had a very bad feeling about this.
"Inferno!"
she shouted at the top of her lungs. A massive hurricane of red-hot flames appeared out of nowhere and swept across the goblin village. It must have been at least 10 meters in diameter and 5 meters tall. It only lasted several seconds, but that was enough to set the entire village ablaze. A wide smile appeared on Zira's face. It was so wide that it seemed like her jaw was about to fall off. Okay, so this part, when I recorded this for the audiobook, I probably did 5 or 6 takes of this laugh to get it right because it's so specific. I want to show you guys the spelling of it. Okay.
Oh God.
I'm gonna get rid of the she giggled part and just try and one shot this this laugh as accurately as I possibly can. All right. How's that? Was that pretty accurate?
Oh, that's perfect.
She spread her arms and let out a maniacal 4-stage laugh. Oh man, her eyes gazed madly at the flames that ravaged the wooden huts and turned everything in front of her to ash. The rest of the group merely went, Ah, there it is, inside their heads. I love this next line. Nobody knew how or why, but it was a sort of unspoken rule that female casters were all fucked in the head.
Oh God.
I wish
that line earned me a 2-star review on Goodreads.
Really? That's
Yeah.
that's awesome. That is so good. Hello?
Hello.
Hey, it's James. What's up, James?
Yeah, not too bad. Just finished my yogurt. I decided I wouldn't eat that on camera.
Okay. Is that like dairy cruelty? Or something?
No, I think it's more just the combination of the fact that my book is called Dragon Seed and eating something white on camera for my first time with you guys is maybe a little too much.
Yeah, I think that would be a little bit too much for people.
But I do have the Starbucks because I'm from Seattle. So.
Okay. Wait, you're from Seattle? I hear.
Yeah, I'm originally Australian and then moved to Seattle.
All right, I was about to say that's an interesting Seattle accent. Okay, well, cool. Let's. I'm gonna finish up this request.
Yes.
And then we'll move on to Dragon Seed. So
I love Morningwood.
Oh, I'm so glad that you said that because I do too. And I am talking about the book. I think actually the phenomenon that it's named after can be annoying, but the book is a lot of fun, and it's still the most, like, everybody loves large chest is the most requested thing on this stream.
Oh yeah, there's I thought for all time, I imagine.
Yeah, I thought that maybe the requests would stop coming in once we started actually making the audiobook available on Audible, but that's not the case. People just want to keep hearing it. Okay, so yeah, feel free to make fun of me while I'm doing this. All right. Let's read that 2-star earning line once again. Nobody knew what, how, or why, but it was a sort of unspoken rule that female casters were all fucked in the head. This seemed especially true for offense-type jobs like the witch. In Zira's case, it was obvious that she had a bit of a pyromaniac streak going on. The way she cackled like that made it clear she had forgotten completely about her surroundings. This was a serious fault that could one day lead to her death. "Get down!" screamed Buddy. Everyone besides the still laughing psycho hit the dirt. A streak of dark matter flew above them, precisely through the spot where the dwarven priest's head was half a second ago. It kept going for several more meters before fizzling out of existence. "Aegis!" screamed Koros. A transparent bubble of golden light wrapped around the party. A second mass of darkness slammed into the hastily constructed barrier. The Aegis spell couldn't take it and shattered, but proved enough to repel the attack. Buddy recognized the Shadow Bolt spell. He leaped to his feet while shouting, "It's a warlock!" to his comrades. In his right hand he held 3 throwing knives, poised between his fingers. He threw the trio of blades at a particular tree some 20 meters away. The rogue was aiming at a rather dense pile of leaves, which he had confirmed was the origin of both shadow bolts with his heightened senses. In an instant, the leaves opened up to reveal an array of dagger-like teeth and a thick red tongue. The out-of-place maw swallowed up the 3 throwing knives like they were an afternoon snack. Okay, I want to comment on this real quick. My favorite stuff to do is the non-language noises that Boxy makes.
So you like making box sounds, basically.
Yeah, I like making the box sounds. Like, they're so amazing, and they're so. I think you've written them so perfectly illustrative. Like, it makes complete sense with the character. Okay, here goes this one, which is one of my favorites. "Ksa!" screamed the mimic. Like, how is that so perfect for this character?
Because I actually sounded them out. Have you tried speaking without using your lips? Because mimics do not have lips, and I've practiced talking without using my lips.
And then you figured out how to spell that shit out.
Yeah, basically.
Oh man, I like doing that even more. Like, the more articulate Boxy gets, the more disappointed I get.
I especially like when he goes hook.
Yeah.
Hook. It does crack me up when I listen to them.
Yeah. Yeah, those little sounds, yeah, especially listening to the audio, like they just stop me dead, and I have to like rewind to listen to whatever actually happens because I'm laughing too hard to pay attention to the rest. Since it was already discovered, its leaf camouflage was now useless. It leaped from the tree branch it was sitting on. By the time it hit the ground, it had already returned to its regular appearance, that of a wooden chest frame with 6 black spider-like feet and a trio of tongue tentacles gripping a sword each. Having confirmed their target, Mark grabbed a hold of his flare launcher. He aimed it at the sky and pulled on the string. There was a bang and a flash as the bright red flare shot off, screaming into the blue sky. Having confirmed the signal was sent, he turned his attention towards the monster. In the next instant, he felt something small and sharp fly past his face, leaving a scratch on his cheek. You have suffered a minor scratch, HP -2. You have been poisoned, HP -20. Your movements have been dulled by the poison. Buddy, who had already distanced himself from the 2 warriors in the front, broke out into a cold sweat. He recognized the projectile that grazed Mark as his own poisoned throwing knife. One of the three he had thrown at the mimic just moments ago, to be precise. The monster had somehow caught it inside its mouth and had thrown it back with speed rivaling his own. If its aim was better, Mark would have a metal handle sticking out of his eye socket right now. Buddy wasn't a particularly religious guy, but he still found himself offering a silent prayer to whatever god was listening. Please let our backup get here in time. And that's it, guys.
Spoiler alert, it doesn't.
Say it again?
Spoiler alert, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't. But that's part of the fun, everybody. So, yeah, Neven, thanks for hanging out with us. You can stay however long you want to, but this is Morningwood is done. And remember, guys, you can go pick it up from Audible. And Morningwood is available. Fizzle Sprocket is available. And Morningwood is actually gone. So yeah, go pick it up. And if you want a free copy, requested it in the chat. Hopefully Danny's paying attention and he'll be able to keep track of everybody who requests it. But if you want a copy of Fizzle Sprocket, you can request it here in the chat, or any of our newest stuff. I mean, Greystone Chronicles is still selling steadily, and so is Pangea Online. Both of those are great audiobooks. Both of those were actually narrated by our other narrators, Justin Thomas James and Lori Catherine Winkle. So yeah, that's it for Morningwood for today. Wait, I need to unshare. That's it. Yeah. Okay, one more time. Morningwood, Fizzle Sprocket, Audible. And now, all right. And now we move on to Dragon Seed. All right. Actually, I need to plunge into the Inception one more time real quick. Because I forgot I need to share it. The Dragon Seed. So yeah. This is Dragon Seed on Amazon. Oh my goodness. Nice big. Okay, so actually this artist used this cover to kind of convince me to hire him for another book that we're working on. Well, that we've worked on and it's ready to publish, but the author's kind of disappeared. Dante's Immortality. So I had him do the cover for that. So hopefully we'll be releasing that sometime soon. Antonio, if you're watching this, we need you to come out so we can actually get publishing here. But yeah, so it's great artwork. I was very impressed with it when he first showed it to me. I didn't know what the book was, but I was like, dude, this picture's awesome. And he also did he did the whole paperback format for you, right? So you've got like
I do my own paperback layouts. And basically, me and this artist worked together very closely on the artwork for this book and for all the other books that are going to be written in the series.
Cool. And so yeah, there's like this whole vista that's happening behind this dragon,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Very beautiful. Is there any way for us to see that? Is that released to the public yet?
Sorry, what?
Oh wait, no, you do already have the paperback version.
Yeah, the paperback's out.
Okay, cool. So yeah, if you guys get the paperback version, you get this cool vista in the background. So yeah, tell us a little bit more about your book.
It was kind of a I got reading LitRPG. I was introduced to LitRPG basically by James Hunter and a couple of other people that I know through various writing communities. And I started reading, and then I just realized that my entire library had become LitRPG somehow. And I read, I think 20 LitRPG books, just like one after the other. And I'm like, wow, this is like something I want to do. So I started writing this basically just as a bit of fun for myself. And then quickly realized, this is going to be a series. So I just kept going with it. And for me, this book draws very heavily on all the things that made my childhood good. Suikoden, Secret of Mana, the Final Fantasy games, specifically the early Final Fantasy. And I noticed that there wasn't too much in the way of JRPG-based LitRPG out there yet. Mm-hmm. So this series is very strongly sort of derives in terms of its game systems and its XP and how it works with scaling and stuff, very strongly based on old JRPGs. So the Super Nintendo and early PlayStation stuff that I used to play as a kid. And other than that, there's a lot of dragons in it. And
is it turn-based?
Turn-based, no, because I didn't think turn-based would be very compatible with the virtual reality setting. But in terms of skills, abilities, how levels work, the kinds of classes they have access to, the kinds of skills in those classes, those are all very JRPG based.
Cool.
Some people have been comparing it a bit to Dragonrider's of Pern, which I consider to be extremely flattering because I love Anne McCaffrey's books as well.
Excellent. So yeah, there's been really, really good response to your book.
Ramon gave it a good review, and I was like, oh, thank God. Yeah. I was really worried about that.
That's the litmus test, right?
Yeah.
But you have not a single 3, 2, or 1 star.
I know. I'm really kind of actually concerned about that. That's not true on Royal Road. I did get a few 3 and 2 and 1 star on Royal Road when I first published this book on Royal Road. But yeah, on Amazon, Amazon readers tend to be a little less critical. They tend to just enjoy the story a bit more, I think. I think the guys on Royal Road are amazing, and I actually don't mind a bit of critical feedback from people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I was able to improve the story like a huge amount by posting it on Royal Road. So yeah, there was some negative feedback there. I tended to take the negative feedback that I got, and I used that feedback when I was editing the book, and that may be why it's doing better on Amazon as well.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it seems to me that that's what Royal Road has really helped with all these other authors. I mean, you have a ton of other ton of other books that you've already published before Dragon Seed. It looks to me kind of like a urban fantasy.
Yeah, my previous series was urban fantasy set in the Russian mafia underworld. So it's basically about a hitman who is also a mage. Mostly him fighting demons and sort of, doing his whole search for redemption thing in inverted commas. Kind of a bit it kind of draws a bit off Dresden Files, like the Hitman game series, and say what's that movie called? John Wick.
Okay.
A lot of the people who've read it have compared it to John Wick in terms of its sort of atmosphere and its content. Except that Alexi is a cat person, not a dog person.
Okay. And then it looks like you have maybe is this a space opera here, or is that?
Yeah, I wrote some short stories for a couple of space opera what do you call them, anthologies. And so I've got 2 stories in there. I've got one that's basically like a super soldier run, and one that's a horror story set in space. And those are in they're called the Expanding Universe. And I'm in the Expanding Universe 1 and 2.
Cool.
And yeah, I also have a non-fiction book about editing your own story, what to do like for self-editing before you actually send your book off to an editor or a proofreader.
Oh man.
I worked in publishing and editing for about 15 years now.
Oh wow. Okay. So I'm sure people like Sin would very much appreciate that authors read your book. Sin, any comments there? Is she here still, or did she peace out? Yeah, she's still here.
Hopefully people can understand me. I just wake up, so.
Oh yeah, you're coming in loud and clear for me.
I'm here. I'm just muted, Jeff.
All right, good.
Okay. So yeah, so can you tell us a little bit more about like the difference between publishing your urban fantasy and your lit RPG?
I like lit RPG readers a whole lot more than urban fantasy readers. I know that's a kind of a strange thing to say, but I've never been able to. I mean, I've never been so engaged with a community of readers before, and that's just fantastic. I love that more than anything else. You know, because when you write stories, you want people to read those stories, and you want to be able to like see them enjoy those stories, and that's something I really have gotten from publishing lit RPG. Urban fantasy readers, like they tend to sort of pick up a book, they'll read it, and then they'll be like, and then they'll just kind of, you know, next one, thanks. But lit RPG readers are really here for their community. They're really here for their artists. You know, this is the only place where I've ever met readers who are like, how can I read your book twice and then make sure you get paid for it twice? Like that level of dedication from some of the fans is just amazing. And I really like being able to, you know, find out what these people want from their stories and then be able to like tell that story. And then like give it twists and turns and make sure that there's things they're not expecting as well. You know?
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
I would chime in here for a sec.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, the thing I've noticed, at least with my fans, is that I think the fact that it has game elements means you attract a certain sort of people who try to power game the system. And that's, I mean, often like in the comments on Royal Road or in Discord or whatever, you see these like long discussions where people, you know, they have theories and then what if you do this? Oh, and if you do that? You know, they sort of just run wild with it. And I don't think that's something you can do with an urban fantasy because it doesn't have the sort of framework
the
lit RPG offers. Because with a lit RPG, it engages people more basically because you're talking about clearly defined mechanics. Well, some of the time. And I think that's part of why the community is so active.
Yeah, it's a very pleasurable reading and writing experience for that reason as well, because you've always got something that your character is working towards. There's no need to kind of have to like contrive, you know, things to fill story holes, which sometimes happens in like non-lit RPG fantasy, where you're kind of like, oh my god, you know, I've got to get my character from place A to place B, and they have to learn XYZ thing in the process. Like, how do I do that? But lit RPG definitely gives the characters and readers a sort of tangible, like consistent goal and sort of, I guess, a reward as well, because you know you're watching this character level and you're watching them get abilities, and then they're like, hey, how can I use this ability to do this thing? And that's very satisfying. And I think that's a major reason why this genre is so popular. You have that kind of constant reward.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, like with urban fantasy or any kind of fantasy, right? Like, well, it's magic, you know. So like, speculating is completely endless in a way that, endless and limitless. You know, where it's kind of hard to say no to any solution, just because you can always say, oh, well, magic. But with lit RPG, yeah, like you guys are saying, there is a defined framework that people can mess with, and you know, almost as if they're trying to break. Like, I don't know about you guys, but when I'm playing a video game, I like to try and break it. Like, I like to try and see what the boundaries are, and mess with, like, you know, the invisible walls, and see where I can jump to, and all that. So maybe that is coming through for readers as well.
I think Ryu asked a question on the YouTube chat. Speaking of which, how do you authors manage, use, and prevent cheat level techniques of mega power leveling? Neven?
This is something I struggled with quite a bit. Because at some point, I mean, gonna borrow a bit from Syndrome from the Incredibles here, but you reach a point where when everyone is super, nobody is, right?
Mm.
And that's kind of what I'm aiming for. I mean, for me, in my series at least, you don't get these like mega overpowered people all that often, because earning levels, in typical RPG fashion, you have to kill monsters that give you experience. But at some point, you run out of monsters before you reach the level cap. So, say the last 20 levels, getting from level 80 to 100 is really, really, really hard. It takes a long time. And you have to take stupid risks that more often than not get you killed just to get that last home stretch. Another thing I'm doing is I introduced a phenomenon whereby if you have too much power, you start to suffer. Like I call it power creep, and it basically is like you go get a whole lot of classes, a whole lot of stats, a whole lot of stuff, but because you're just a base level human, for example, your body literally cannot handle the stress your power is under, and so you start feeling lethargic. You get constant pains, and if you don't chill the fuck out, you don't get you don't get rid of some of that stuff, or you don't take measures, you may die.
So like chronic fatigue hero syndrome.
Yeah, it's more the question where you are a glass cannon, but your own ammunition is breaking you. Something like that.
That's
interesting. I have a similar kind of thing for the Dragon Riders in my series, because dragons are such a basically they're like an atom bomb in game terms, especially if a player's got one. So to actually Dragon Seed is very much about the struggle to even just be able to ride a dragon, and you have to basically go through a series of special mutations. You've got to do the training. You've got to take the right classes. You can't just hop on a dragon and flap around the world. You have to, there's physics against you. Magic in the Archemi setting is actually a toxic substance. So dragons basically have mana for blood. And if they breathe on you, if they bleed on you, and you aren't suitably prepared to be able to withstand that, you're going to die. And people can fail the trials that they have to go through to become Dragon Riders. If you're not tough enough, if you don't have a certain amount of luck, there are elements that make that hard. And so Dragon Seed is very much about that struggle for Hector, the main character. And as the books go along, he still has to learn and adapt. This isn't really a spoiler, but at some point, he has to deal with, for example, how do you deal with negative G-force? The average human passes out, I think, at 2 or 3 negative Gs if your head is above your ankles when you're in a dive. Stuff like that is all stuff that I use to factor that in. And you have to scale up your enemies as well. So, when you're building your big bad guys, they have to be just as powerful or more powerful than your heroes. So they have their own Excel spreadsheets and stuff.
That's actually my biggest problem, because at this point in the Royal World version, there is no big bad. And the main character is already at a level where you really can't, just whip one out, because you're talking about, like you said, the atom bomb. You're talking about, putting 2 atom bombs against each other, which is just, kind of ridiculous. And to be honest, that's something I always hated. Like, for example, in Dragon Ball Z, you see that a lot. It's every time they beat the villain, there's a new one, and he's even stronger than the last guy.
Yeah.
Now we gotta train all over again. Come on, guys. There has to be a fucking limit to it.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, for sure. And that's stuff that I personally am already working on. How do I manage this and stop that sort of ridiculous?
So
over 9,000, smashing through mountains.
So what I'm going to try to do is, instead of having someone who's straight up stronger or as strong as Boxy in a fight, you're going to be someone who just maneuvers around him expertly. So we're talking about a battle of wits, not so much, just flinging magic all over the place.
That's so much more interesting.
Yeah, and because I mean, you have to. I mean, Boxy is like he's not even fucking like throughout the majority of the story, he's not even a year old.
Mm.
It's not even a year old. Like how is that going to match up with someone that say has run aspiring for 50 fucking years, has all sorts of connections and resources and manpower and all that shit. Something like that.
Right. Yeah, that's a much more elegant way to deal with the issue rather than just two titans clashing. Brrr. Reminds me of like just a child with their two favorite action figures, just
I mean, the only other thing I could do is literally throw a dragon at it.
Right.
But in my story, dragons are like you do not mess a dragon or they will wipe out your country.
Right. That I can't wait to encounter one of those then. All right, so one last question before we get started on your request here, James. Is that a dragon in that thing back there above your dresser? I can't remember what they're called.
Oh, you mean the tank?
Yeah, the tank. Yeah.
That's a tarantula.
Oh.
We have several tarantulas. So I've got a Mexican fire lake tarantula back there.
That is thick.
She's currently in her burrow. She's just spidering around in there.
That is so
also
cool.
I believe that's called a terrarium.
Yeah.
Terrarium, yeah.
That's a terrarium.
Yeah. All right. Well, here we go. We're gonna get started on your quest. Dragon Seed. Hector Park is in the middle of gathering materials required for the biggest quest of his life, the ritual to become a dragon rider. Hector is a young Korean-American soldier from California, laid back, witty, able to keep his cool when stressed, but prone to hamming it up to relieve tension. All right.
Oh.
So
Yeah, those were the producer's notes.
the producer's notes. All right. So no more character direction, so I'm just gonna get started, and you stop me if I'm doing a character wrong.
Yeah, well, imagine like you're a laid-back sort of ex-biker from San Francisco, and I think you'll be all right.
All right. All right. Ex-biker from San Francisco. I actually did do a whole nonfiction audiobook. This guy's autobiography. He was the first. I'm trying to think of his motorcycle club. They're the direct rivals of the Hells Angels. Mongol. He was the first Mongol to kill a Hells Angel.
Mm.
And so I actually talked to him on the phone for like an hour and got his accent and his voice right.
Yeah, Hector's not that rough around the edges. Before he became, he was conscripted into the army, and before that, he was basically sort of he moonlighted as a bouncer, and he worked as, he did motorcycle stunt work.
Okay.
So
that sounds like fun.
Yeah, so I have a history of security work as well. Like before I became a writer, I bounced. So yeah, some of it's drawn from that experience, and some of it's just like, what kind of skills would someone who becomes a really awesome dragon rider have before he became a dragon rider? Well, motorcycles is a pretty good one.
Yeah.
Anyway,
except dragons aren't that loud.
No, well, they can be.
All right.
Well, we'll see about that.
Slowly, I worked my way around the hole toward the nest. It was big and occupied. A crowned eagle waited there, the second of the mated pair. That meant it was sitting on eggs, and it didn't look pleased to see me. "Here, chickie," I crooned, sidling over the tiles. One of them slipped under my boot, but I kept my balance. The eagle flared his crest feathers. Crowned eagle was an apt name for this bird, a beautiful brown and gold-flecked creature with brilliant gem-like eyes. It probably weighed at least 20 pounds, with a wingspan of 10 feet or more. As I got closer, I saw it had a health bar with a red skull. It was just an ordinary beast, not a monster, but... I wedged my feet against some of the more stable tiles and greenery and turned my spear around so that the blade was pointing away from the bird. I didn't want to hurt it if I didn't have to. Experimentally, I jabbed the butt of my weapon at it. I didn't even get in one poke before the second eagle struck, falling out of the sky like a sledgehammer. The blow threw me onto my back. I slid across the roof, trying to break my momentum as my vision blurred with messages. Crowned Eagle King lands a critical hit. 56 damage. You are stunned. You are bleeding. Oh, you ass-blowing piece of... I had barely gotten over the hit when it dove again, this time with a piercing shriek. Claws raked me again, taking another 50-ish damage off my HP, and was followed up by a blow from the second eagle. Mama had joined the fight. 3 hits took me down to below half HP. Something was wrong. What the fuck? I dodged claws and beaks, trying to get a beat on them. Now that I was in combat, I could see the monster's levels. Both eagles were level 20. Wait, what? There were no level 20 mobs in Archemi. Archemi? Am I pronouncing
Yeah, it's Archemi.
Archemi.
But I say that in my Australian accent, so...
Okay. Archemi.
It's just Archemi.
Cursing, I spun my spear around and swung it like a baseball bat in desperation. The weighty haft knocked one of the huge eagles out of the air, sending it spinning away with a squawk. I found a fighting stance just in time to block another set of vicious talons with my spear. The bird was so strong that he nearly pulled it from my hands. These weren't like the bar guests. There was no way to cross the level imbalance, not with creatures nearly 3 times my level. I was just getting ready to run when the eagle closest to me screamed, a sound that drilled behind my ears and wiped my vision. Crowned Eagle uses Fury Scream. You are blind. Can you not? I wasn't sure if I was chewing...
I love your Hector voice. I'm just laughing. I'm like, ah. Oh, my tarantula came out.
Oh, cool.
I'll show you once you're done.
All right, yeah, cool. Make her famous.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if I was chewing out the HUD or the psycho bird that was bashing into my head and face. I instinctively blocked the next slash as its wings beat around my head. I triggered Blood Sprint and hit, sending dark fire splashing over the eagle's feathers. It squalled, knocked back, and screeched as I followed up with the Bloodstorm combo. Its health ring didn't budge. I shadow-stepped away from the next aerial strike, shooting past the bird as it dived. And then I realized something. They were both focused on me. Fighting these things was for suckers. Thanks! Before either of them could react, I turned back and sprinted for the nest. The eagles shrilled as I dove for the untidy mess of twigs and bones. There were 3 spotted brown eggs in there, each one the size of my clenched fist. I only needed one. I ducked and rolled under the sharp talons of the enraged parent bird and victoriously clamped a hand on the nearest egg. Quest updated. The Trial of Marantha. 2 out of 4 ingredients obtained. I irritably brushed the HUD closed, and in the moment of distraction, one of the eagles bodily tackled me from behind and knocked me face first into the roof. My face slammed onto tile, and pain and blood blossomed as my nose burst like an overripe berry. Bleeding everywhere, I scrambled up and away with the egg clutched to my chest, dodging and weaving away from the swooping eagles to the edge of the roof. I was just about to reach it when I took 2 blows to the head and shoulders, one after the other. They were only glancing blows, but they pushed my already unsteady ass forward. Before I knew what was happening, I'd slipped. With the spear in one hand and the egg in the other, I fell down the hole and right on top of the glowing orb of light. I crashed onto the altar on my back. There went another 20 HP. And as soon as I touched the orb, a tall cage sprung up from the floor around the altar, and a piercing alarm screamed to life around me. It drowned out my moans as I picked myself up, clutching my back with one hand and the egg to my chest with the other. Okay, I suck! I get it! I shouted aloud in frustration, trying to get my bearings. My eyes were running, my nose was spouting blood, and I was fairly sure I'd broken my spine if the pain was anything to go by.
For fuck's sake, stop already!
To my surprise, it did. The orb sunk toward the floor and disappeared, but the cage remained. It was high, about 12 feet tall, but if I jumped from the altar, I could make it. I was just getting my bearings to make the leap when a loud clunk reverberated through the ruin. An entire section of the floor broke away and tipped down, revealing nothing but yawning black space.
You have to be fucking kidding me!
I scrabbled with my heels, trying to leap for the edge, but to no avail. The trap spun all the way over, and I slid and then tumbled helplessly into the abyss. The wind tore at me as I plummeted down with extreme realism, spinning head over ass in an uncontrollable, probably fatal dive. I fell past ledges and bridges, howling cave mouths, and then joined a thin waterfall that tumbled down into a hole that seemingly went forever. I spammed health items, but it was the water that shocked me out of panic. Waterfall meant water. Water landing? Water landing! I managed to straighten out in the loose cascade of water. It wasn't enough to break my fall, but it was enough to guide me in the darkness as I unexpectedly dived into a huge cavern, head first, and crashed into the shallow, icy underground lake. You have taken 144 points of impact damage. HP, 70 out of 320. My health drained to less than 1/4 of my HP as I came up in agony, gasping for air. For several minutes, I flopped around as my vision pulsed and throbbed, also very realistically, and then flailed for the nearest patch of land. I was almost within reach when something wound around my ankle and tried to haul me back under the surface. I was lucky to get one gasp of air before vanishing under the water a second time. I squirmed in the grip of the monster trapping me, trying to make out what it was even as I thrust my spear blindly. It was so dark I couldn't see much. A gaping maw about to engulf my leg, a tongue that lashed, blood spreading through the water as I sunk the point of the blade into flesh and twisted it. The shock of pain made the huge creature pull back and dart away, inhumanly fast. Even though I couldn't see it clearly, the HUD identified the creature for me. A strange giant frog. Giant was correct. On land, frogs were ridiculous croaking sacks of air. In water, they were slippery, fast, and terrifying. The ones in this underground lake were big enough to swallow me whole, and now that blood had been spilled, dozens of them were heading for me, their life meters gleaming in the darkness. Each mob ranged in size and level from 5 to 7. I burbled whatever swear words came to mind as I powered through the water back toward the shore. My adrenaline points surged as I reached the rocks, kicking a slimy shadow as it rammed into me. My boot hit a rubbery snout, and I pulled myself onto land belly first, like a seal. Not graceful, not with armor wearing me down, but effective.
Fuck this goat-sucking bullshit piece of crap!
Drenched, my HP throbbing down in the red, I turned to face the pool with my spear leveled. But the frogs in the water weren't interested in following me out.
Yeah! Stay there!
I made a rude gesture at them, still catching my breath. I was about to straighten up when a thunderous croak rumbled the air of the cavern, and I realized why the frogs were so willing to let me go. Slowly, I turned. A bus-sized figure squatted in the shadows. Black slime covered a tank covered with rough green skin. Glowing crimson eyes with hourglass-shaped pupils gleamed in the light cast by the luminescent fungi on the walls. Each one of the creature's eyes was larger than my head. But worst of all were the tentacles. 4 barbed black tentacles writhed behind and above the behemoth aberration's warty back, hanging over its head like scorpion tails. It was level 12. I was level 5 and at 21% HP, so I did what any experienced fighter would do. I ran like a little bitch. Nope, nope, nope! That's a nope! The tentacles smashed down on the ground behind me.
Pure instinct forced me to roll and dive just as a spew of slime streaked through the air just where I'd been. Nope! I dashed for the first cave entry I could find in the gloom, diving forward as the mutant frog's barbed, acid-coated tongue smashed into the wall beside the open door and sent chips of rock and moss flying. I scrambled in and down. Running, skidding, and sliding over the rough ground as the beast hopped after me. It wasn't particularly fast, but its legs could propel it in a leap that closed the gap between us and shook the ground when it landed, nearly throwing me off my feet. Death by giant hentai frog is not my kink, okay? I shouted at no one in particular as the beast squeezed itself into the cave mouth. After me, its flexible, squishy body sliding through the narrow space behind me. The tunnel narrowed. I folded my spear into my inventory and kept running, but that second of slowing down put me within AoE range. A tentacle lashed out, and the tip sliced across my calf, sending me stumbling. The green poison status alert flared to life. You have taken 5 slashing damage. You are poisoned. Cursing and limp running through the dark caves, I followed the blasts of cold, stale air coming from deep within the ruins. At any point, I knew I'd run into a dead end, and then I was going to get the full virtual reality immersion experience of being eaten alive by Frogger. Panting, I rounded a corner and found myself facing a wall of black, but a wall of space, not of stone. My salvation was a hole about 4 feet tall and barely a foot wide. It looked out over an ancient hall that was dimly lit by rows and rows of flickering, tired-looking mage lights. Oh, James, you think you could mute until you have...
Oh, sorry.
Ready to talk? Thanks. My salvation... Okay. It looked out over an ancient hall that was dimly lit by rows and rows of flickering, tired-looking mage lights. It was cavernous, hundreds of feet long, with marching rows of moss-covered columns receding into the darkness. Frantic, I squeezed myself through the gap, sending chunks of stone tumbling to the floor below. The limestone was soft, weakened by thousands of years of erosion and damp air. Once I was outside and able to find my footing on the rough surface of the wall, I threw myself from the precipice into a forward roll. It was a move I'd practiced over and over again during martial arts training, but not from a height like this. But it was surprisingly effective and carried me through to my feet so fast that I nearly fell onto my knees. The aberration was apparently hungry, because he was right behind me. He squeezed through the gap, raining chunks of stone into the hall, and slithered to the floor with enough weight that the floor around it cracked and sunk. This was a boss-tier monster, well and truly aggroed, and it wasn't going away. I would have to fight. In the true spirit of RPG adventure, I stuffed a piece of beef jerky in my mouth, slapped 2 poultices on to lift my HP back into the yellow, and yelled a garbled war cry. But then I dodged around a pillar with a short, girly scream as the aberration frog went berserk, slamming its tongue around like a bullwhip. It hit the pillar and sent cracks running through the ancient stone. You guys are meant to be on easy mode! Why do I have a goddamn XP penalty and a level cap and you don't? Frustrated, I dodged and ran ahead of as the ponderous frog hopped and wobbled its way toward me. Every time it landed, gravel and dirt rained down on us from above. A single solid hit from that tongue or those tentacles risked killing me. The food and poultices were regenerating my health, but not fast enough. It was only up to half, and I was going to be able to take 1 blow. No more than that. At least my AP were going to fill up quickly. Frogger wasn't going to give me any time to think of a plan. It bounded forward, almost landing on top of me. On reflex, I stabbed it in the leg. The spear blade went all the way into its rubbery flesh. Take that, fucking frog. You hit aberration for 12 piercing damage. HP, 2,478 out of 2,490. 2,500?! My shriek of rage bounced off the walls.
All I had going for me at the moment was my speed. Frogger was slow, and I was relatively quick. Panting, I zoomed to the side in a puff of shadow, turning invisible and invincible around the next tentacle smash. In another moment, I lunged forward with Whirlwind Butcher, striking as I spun past the mutated frog's slimy bulk. Critical hit. You hit Aberration for 34 damage. HP, 2,444 out of 2,490. That powerful attack still barely clipped its HP. I turned too slowly at the end of the sprint, and the tongue struck me a glancing blow that knocked me tumbling across the floor toward the far end of the giant room. Aberration hits you for 103 damage. That shitty little love tap took me from 179 HP to 76, just like that. This monster was too OP for me to have a hope in hell to face-to-face combat. This monster was too OP for me to have a hope in hell in face-to-face combat. While the jerky regenerated hit points, I ran for the front of the room, where the pillars converged around a dais. It was overgrown with mutated plants that concealed a huge bronze door. That door didn't look like it was going to open any time soon, but there was something to be said for the arrangement of pillars. The space between the crumbling supports was much narrower here. Even as I began to put my strategy together, the enormous frog tried to leap after me. Instead, it crashed clumsily into one of the pillars, shattering it and toppling the rubble all over itself. The giant frog half-croaked, half-roared as it slashed at the remaining stone with its tentacles, and then shoveled the broken chunks of rock into its mouth. Jeez. Whatever magic steroids it had eaten to reach this size hadn't made it any smarter than a normal frog. While it was distracted, I squinted up at the ceiling. Seams of luminescent moss glowed above the sputtering mage lights, shining off wet earth. Stalactites of varying sizes hung down like spears. Most of them were small, but a few of them weren't. Bringing down the house on the frog meant bringing it down on me as well. But if I had to pick a way to die, being squished like a bug was preferable to being eaten alive like one. I steeled myself, puffing and rolling my shoulders, then ran back out toward the boss monster. "Come on, fatso! Let's dance!" The aberration spat out the rocks it was trying to eat as it screeched, disturbed by my movements. It surged toward me with all 4 tentacles and its tongue. I triggered my jump ability. A surge of power gathered in my legs, a thrill of raw energy that allowed me to spring off the ground like a cricket. I landed on Frogger's back, bouncing off and rolling ungracefully to the ground behind it. The creature whirled around in place and stormed toward me, tentacles smashing the ground to help propel it forward. It blasted through another sandstone pillar like a bowling ball. Rock exploded in all directions, and a piece of shrapnel clipped me over the head. The world spun as I staggered behind the next pillar. There was no time to rest before it rumbled toward me, lashing out with its boneless tentacles in all directions. "You want my ass? Come get it!" I wasn't feeling the bravado anymore. Dizzy and bordering on hysteria, I lurched out of the way as the tongue swung wildly toward me and clumsily led the frog around in a rough circle around one of the biggest stalactites in the room. The mutant creature charged tirelessly, but without cunning or strategy. It bust right through the crumbling stone in its efforts to reach me. My vision pulsed red as the frog, sensing victory, slapped the final pillar aside and opened its mouth wide to pull me in. Its mouth was still open as the ceiling collapsed on us both. And that's the request.
Ta-da!
Ta-da! So that
Wow.
was a fucking intense boss fight.
Yeah, I write horror. So the Hound of Eden series, which was my first book series, is really horrific. And so with LitRPG, I'm like, oh, I better tone it down. Oh, well, I'll just put a giant frog with, poisonous hentai tentacles, and
Yeah.
it's like 3 times Hector's level, and he can find a way to deal with that.
Yeah, I think LitRPG needs that though. We need more of the I
Hentai
like the horror
tentacles?
aspect. Yeah, more hentai tentacles.
Yeah.
I think Neven, you're going to be giving us some in book 3, right?
Yeah, there is a thing called the tentacle rape scene
The thing. Yeah.
that I do believe you actually read as part of Cringe Creator.
I did. So you guys can look through the back catalog and find that. And actually, that's going to be less intense or more intense than what you're going to be publishing, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of tentacles, let's see this. Let's see this.
Oh yeah, I'll see. The camera is going to be moving a bit, so excuse me. Let's see if you can see her. I don't know if you can see that.
Oh, cool.
She's standing up against the glass. You see her?
Yeah. Trying to think.
Is it not focusing?
There's a Muppet. It reminds me of.
Yeah. Hang on.
Muppet.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they're not Nightmare Puppet.
See if we can get cage cam. Maybe.
Okay, can you not do that, please?
There you go.
What?
I'm not the best with spiders.
Oh, okay.
Oh, come on.
She's cute and fuzzy. She doesn't hurt anyone.
No, I know that they're typically the large, like it's the tiny fuckers you want to look out for.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The big one.
Well, I'm from Australia, so like she's pretty much an average size spider for me.
Oh yeah, you have like fucking coconut spiders.
Whoops! There goes my camera.
Coconut spiders.
Enjoy the 360 view of my office.
It's exactly what it sounds like. It's a spider that's as big as a coconut.
In Australia.
Honestly, I don't know.
We don't have those in Australia.
Making it up on the spot.
Okay. Well, I gotta see this thing, this coconut spider.
Anyway,
well, yeah, that tarantula will get to be about 7 inches across.
Ooh.
She's only a baby. Oh, hang on. Oh, my wife has just come in with another tarantula.
This is super dangerous because it's really, really tiny. You can see, and she's hiding. She's
watching the stream too because my wife.
Hi, I'm his wife.
Hello.
Hello.
And I brought the terrifying real spider.
You can see it. It's like a dirt box.
Yeah, it's like a teeny little dirt box.
Where is he? Oh, I don't know. Oh, there he is.
Yeah.
Look at this little baby there.
Oh, so little.
Yeah. That's a 1/2 CR. Oh, they're coming for a visit. Yeah, sorry, Neven. A tiny spider. Also not poisonous. None of these guys are poisonous.
Not medically significant.
They're about as poisonous as cats, so.
I don't know, man. Cats can be pretty vicious bastards.
Yeah, well, you saw mine. Mine was just sitting there in my arms, like.
Is it part spider?
My cat? No.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Well, thank you so much for the reading. You really do Hector's voice justice. He's got that kind of. he's a kind of funny guy. He's based on. I used to run an anime club, and he's based on some guys I knew at anime club to a large extent.
Oh, really?
Awesome. He sounded a bit like Deadpool to me.
Yeah, I think there is a little bit of Deadpool in him too.
Especially the way he constantly curses.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
He swears like a
sailor. So yeah, I don't know if it's just that I'm Australian, but I swear like a bloody sailor. I always swear.
Me too. It's fun.
He gets quite creative at times too. So.
Well, so thanks so much for that request. If you want to hang around while I'm doing the next one, that's fine with me. If you
I'll listen in.
Peace out, whatever you want.
I gotta go, Jeff. I gotta get back to work. Okay.
All right, Sin. Thank you.
Adios.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye. All right. So our next request is going to be, where is it? Here it is, Gunmeister Online by Noah Barnett, and we're gonna do another little inception real quick, so you can look at the.
God damn that voice.
So you can look at the cover one more time and drool a little bit. Yes, that is a gorgeous woman cuddling with a fully automatic weapon, and we need more of that in the world. I think gorgeous women holding and cuddling dangerous objects.
I disagree completely.
But yeah, so let's see what this spot is all about that Noah has sent me. Let's see. We have characters. Charlie, the main character, average American with low to medium range. Grace is a Southern belle with a rather high-pitched, drawling country accent. Monty is a Civil War soldier with a Kentucky or Louisiana twang. Remy is modeled on Jinx from League of Legends. Think of her as a teenager without a care. Okay. Let's look up Remy from League of Legends because I've never.
Yeah, she's. I think it's basically Harley. Harley Quinn is what you're looking for.
Oh, okay.
Sort of a high energy psychopath.
Sounds like fun. Best of Remilia? Is that her full name?
No, it's Jinx.
Oh, Jinx. Derp. Get jinxed. Let's just start shooting. Let's see. I just have to find. I want to find just a montage of her talking. These are Jinx plays.
Maybe try Googling Jinx voice lines.
Yeah.
That really hurt my feelings. That was almost not close at all. Stay still. I'm trying to shoot you. I'll give you to the count of time's up, duck. Just kidding. That won't help. Gotta die sometime. Smile. It's called gunplay.
Okay. Pretty much what I expected.
No, just die. Seriously, screaming helps not at all. No need to be scared or alive.
All right. Doable. He needs to watch Jinx's music video. I feel like if she's singing, I probably won't like that.
Okay. It's a lot less squeakier than it sounds.
Okay. Well, maybe we'll listen to it after this request. We are running long here. We're 2 requests in and an hour and 40 minutes. So, okay. Here goes. Gunmeister Online by Noah Barnett. Grace, as usual, sat alone on the leaf-covered bench. Her contract collar was gone, so the only thing between her and the world was a thin bikini. At least, it was still warm tonight. Her face was blank, and her gaze... Her face was blank, and her gaze distant as Grace floated through the memories of better days. Charlie paused next to the bench, and the girls let go of him. How you doing, Grace? The weapon ignored them and continued to stare into the distance. Elva unfolded the woolen blanket and draped it over her. It was the only thing Charlie could give her. His previous attempts to put coats and scarves on Grace had ended up in them being destroyed. A blanket, though, wasn't worn. It only covered... Wasn't worn? Oh, okay. Elva knelt before Grace. All right, Elva, he didn't give direction on Elva. All right, let's... I kind of... Maybe I remember some direction I got later on. You should really go to the armory. It's warmer there, Elva said, pressing the woman's cool hands to her face. Opening the thermos, Elva poured some of the hot cider into the cup. As she placed it in the weapon's hands, Grace finally looked down. She took a sip at first, before draining the entire cup, and Elva quickly added more. Are you trying to get me drunk? Grace asked, sipping the cider more slowly. Alcohol did funny things to the girls. Chiefly, it made them randy as hounds in mating season. It also warmed the stomach and flushed blood to the skin. Grace's cheeks almost immediately took on a pink, rosy tinge. How else is a man supposed to get a beautiful woman like you to come home with him? He asked with a smile. Grace sipped again and carefully wiped her lips. And what, pray tell, would you do with me? She asked, glancing at him over her cider. Grace scanned the skimpy costumes the 3 girls wore with disapproval. To be honest, I'd chain you to my bed and spend all night, and each night, turning you into a screaming succubus of carnal desire. You are a lascivious devil, Grace said before she hiccuped. That's part of my charm,
I would heartily disagree. I must tell you, here and now, I'll never contract with you, she said, glancing with horror at the nearly naked girls. Charlie laughed. He hadn't picked out their costumes, but they knew what he liked. Your words wound me to the quick, and I feel the heat. So the cider appears to be working. I'm sorry for ignoring you. It was rude of me, Grace admitted. Charlie waved a dismissive hand. You won't go back to the armory? Elva asked, interrupting the banter. No. You are as stubborn as Montgomery, Charlie said. Grace laughed lightly and said, That's the nicest thing you've said to me. Thank you. Do you need anything? No, I'll stay a bit longer. Elva's right. There's no point in torturing yourself by sitting out here. I'll stay a bit longer, she repeated. That was the most he could do. The wool blanket would keep her warm, and she had food at the armory. Charlie nodded and moved away. Elva closed the thermos and caught up, slipping under his arm. I worry about her. Weapons are programmed to seek a Meister. We need to be used, Elva said in a soft whisper. Leave her be. Charlie, Elva said, clutching at his elbow. I can't, Elva. You heard her. She won't contract with me. Besides, it would be unfair to keep her as a trophy weapon. I'm honest enough to say that I'd never use her. Not with Farah, Sophie, and yourself around. The three girls hugged him, and their warmth was welcome. Charlie had time to burn before the event, and Grace made it rather clear she wanted to be left alone. Charlie hadn't walked far when he caught sight of an apparition. A man of about 20 walked carefully through the moonlit parking lot. He wore a gray jacket of the Confederate Army, which was cut in the fashion for the enlisted man. His dark brown hair was short, and his face was cleanly shaven. However, there was something in the nose that was familiar. The eyes, too, were fierce as they looked only at Grace. In his arms was a bouquet of red roses, and he stopped a few feet from the blanket-covered woman. The young Southern soldier coughed gently, trying to get the woman's attention, but Grace continued to stare into the distance, oblivious to all. He took a step closer and asked, Will you ever forgive me? Grace turned, and her eyes snapped to the young man before her. She half stood from the bench, and her fingers clutched at her bosom as if she could physically stop her heart from pounding. These are for you, the Confederate soldier said, holding out the roses. For a few seconds, she continued to stare at the young man. Then Grace launched herself upward, and the blanket fell away. She swept the flowers aside and wrapped her arms around the young man's neck. The bouquet fell to the flagstones as she started to weep. Is it you, Monty? Am I dreaming still, or are you real? She wept, burying her head in his shoulder. I have returned. She cried for almost a minute before pulling back and raised her hand. The young man saw it coming and made no move to dodge. The moonlight glinted off her pale skin as she brought it savagely down. I hate you, she said, slapping him. Her blow struck him to one knee, and blood flowed from the corner of his mouth. He gathered himself, looked up at Grace, and said, I deserve that for putting you through so much. Anything he tried to say next was lost as Grace launched herself at him. She pressed her lips to his in a kiss that was as much fury as passion. A clear collar formed around her neck as she took in his red essence. She made sounds, grunting and moaning, as her tongue fought its way deeper and deeper into his mouth. I waited and waited, but you didn't return, Grace finally said as she stood, but Monty remained on his knee. He reached up, taking her hand, and kissed it with his bloody lips. With God as my witness, I promise never to leave you again. I beg you, please be my weapon, he said. Yes, 1,000 times yes, Grace cried and fell into his arms. Charlie approached the two and said, I have to warn you, I don't believe in ghosts. Grace blushed, realizing the recent kiss had been seen by others.
She hid behind Montgomery, still trying to collect herself, and caught sight of the dropped blanket, then ran to the beach, picked up the discarded cloth, and draped it over herself.
"That is fine, sir. I don't believe in you either," Montgomery said, stepping forward.
Charlie shook his hand, and it was still as steely firm as ever. "I'll spare you the slap. But I too have missed you. What took you so long?"
"I spent a month in a purgatory of my own making,"
Monty answered with a self-deprecating smile. He reached up, wiping the blood from his lips. "Elva, that cider will help, I think," Charlie said. Elva bounced forward and unscrewed the thermos. Monty glanced at the half-nude cat slave as she poured a cup of bourbon-laced cider.
"Color me surprised. It's Kentucky rye. You don't strike me as the type,"
Monty said, taking another sip.
"He kept trying to get me drunk, so I would go home with him,"
Grace answered in a piqued tone.
"He did he?"
"Only with the purest of intentions," Charlie said quickly. Grace hugged Monty from behind, wrapped her arms around his stomach.
"He said he wanted to chain me to his bed and turn me into a sex-crazed harlot."
"Only with the purest of intentions," he repeated more weakly. Grace finally relented and said,
"I only half jest. He comes by almost daily to visit. Charlie's become something of a nagging nanny, which really was tiresome."
"Traitor! You just squashed your chances at getting accepted into my harem."
"Thank you, sir. I mean that from the bottom of my heart."
Charlie was not one for soul-searching gazes. He sought a change of subject to more neutral topics. "Tell me more about your trip through purgatory."
"A sad, unfortunate tale. It took a week to arrive by ship, but at least the place was as advertised. A transient hotel for people ascending to digital form. I could barely afford the price of admission, but they took my money and slotted me in at the bottom of the list. I assure you that it was a long list,"
Monty said, holding out the thermal cup again, which Elva quickly refilled. He drank about half before continuing.
"Old people complain a lot, especially those standing at heaven's door. If it wasn't the hot weather, it was the rain, or lack of imported mineral water."
Monty sighed and quickly drank the other half of his mug.
"Everyone there was a tech boom baby or a wealthy executive, or the wife of one. However, it was the truly rich that bought premium tickets. They got on the short list, and each one pushed my name lower and lower. It wasn't as if I was left in a room to rot, though I sometimes felt as much. Miguel was my ward, a nice boy who was handy at getting hard alcohol. I'd run out of my prescription pills about a week into the sojourn. They didn't give out meds, nothing stronger than aspirin anyway, so alcohol was the only alternative. I'd slip Miguel extra cash to bring me the good stuff. Miguel and I spent hours watching the local football team. He was a fan, and I wanted anything to distract myself from the pain,"
Monty admitted. Grace suddenly clutched at his arm like Monty would blow away in the wind. He reached up, patting her hand.
2 days ago, I was hauled from bed, still half drunk, and tossed into a wheelchair. I was halfway to the gates of heaven before I realized what was going on,"
he said, pausing again to pat Grace's hand. To the woman, he whispered,
"It's what we jokingly called the dive rooms."
Grace's death-like grip loosened marginally, so Monty continued.
"My ascension to digital avatar came at the cost of another. The wife of an Indian diamond tycoon had passed away minutes before her dive. I suppose the thought of it was too much for her old heart. As you can imagine, they don't put much effort in saving people. Usually, they'd have just moved down the list, but Miguel had bribed the technicians with the money I'd been slipping him. It was a good thing, too. I do not think I would have lasted another week. Without treatment, the cancer was running rampant, eating my body alive."
Monty paused again to get his cup refilled. He grinned to himself, looking down at the mulled cider.
So there I found myself, blubbering like a child, as they pulled the dive helmet over my head. It worked, and that's what matters. Well, let's try that again. It worked, and that's what matters. How was Paris? Charlie asked, and Monty laughed. That pathetic attempt at historical noir didn't appeal to me in the slightest. I pleaded with Alex to let me go. Not only did he give me his blessing, but he also returned my money. He said he wouldn't beggar a man to enter heaven. Did that also come with a change in appearance? Monty laughed again and said, When I logged in and looked at my face, it seemed wrong. I didn't feel old anymore, so I took what little credits I had and altered my appearance. Finally, he turned to Grace. I looked for you at the armory all day yesterday, but no one had even heard of you. I finally ran into someone who said they'd seen a statue in a fancy dress near the competition center. She blushed and pressed her face to his chest.
Monty,
she breathed.
Monty,
The man stopped her with a kiss. Her fingers tightened on his gray jacket before Monty picked the woman up off the ground. She clung to his neck as he half turned. If you'll excuse us, Grace and I need an hour to be properly reacquainted.
It's good to have you back.
I do declare, I am glad to be back. Monty stared away towards a set of apartments with Grace still wrapped in the wool blanket, but paused after 20 steps. He half turned and said in a conspiratorial whisper, We'd best make it 2 hours. For lost time. What?
Don't be late for the event! It promises to be a good one, Charlie called after the man. That was the most romantic thing I've ever seen, Elva said, sniffing. After a second, she added, What? Nyan? Okay, this must be a thing. This must be like an anime thing that I don't understand. Nyan? Is that like a thing that cat girls do in animes? Okay. Nyan. Her cat whiskers. Wait, what? Someone explain this to me. Nyan?
Oh yeah, it's like the sound that cats make in Japanese. So yeah, like instead of meow, it's nyan. Yeah.
Okay. Nyan. Okay. Her cat whiskers were smudged as she wiped at her tears. I'm just glad it wasn't a romantic tragedy, Charlie replied. Okay. Should have just handcuffed the girl to his bed. That would have shown his love, Remy said from nearby. The short girl came out of the bushes and dusted herself off. Ivy leaves covered her small chest and groin. A wreath of flower blossoms crowned her head, and she held a star-tipped wand in her hand. On her back was a pair of flapping gossamer wings. Her innocent pixie costume was marred slightly by the heavy hardware she was carrying. I don't think you quite understand the word, Charlie said, moving to the bench. I do too. It's when a man and a woman make googly eyes at each other. Then a stork comes and delivers a baby. Remy answered definitively. That's not love. Or even romantic. Those two pretend to be all chaste, but as soon as the door shuts... Is it chaste or chaste? Oop. Come on. Chaste, okay. Those two pretend to be all chaste, but as soon as the door shuts, they'll fuck each other's brains out, Remy countered. Charlie shook his head and walked with his troop into the competition center. A display over the reception desk showed a countdown. In a little less than 2 hours, the Halloween event would start. Jen and Tobias were already waiting nearby. A flock of tuxedoed males surrounded Jennifer, who regally sat in a chair while they offered her drinks, fanned her, and massaged her bare shoulders. Tonight, she was dressed as a succubus in a red corset gown. 2 horns stuck out from the sides of her head and curled back behind her ears. A red whip hung at her waist. And that's it. That's the request. So, Noah Barnett, thank you for the request. Thank you guys for listening. What did you guys think of that? It was super reveal.
I kind of fell asleep there, honestly.
Did you?
It wasn't riveting stuff, you know.
Okay. Yeah, it was a bit slow. It's again, it goes from like a romance angle.
Yeah, I would like to see what context that the like the characters and interaction is in.
Yeah, it seems like satire on the whole. The two southern lovers, like the way that they were talking to each other is very. It seemed like stuff that was plucked right from Gone with the Wind or something. You know?
As I understand it, the premise is that the female characters are weapons.
Right. I definitely need more context. Ayano Imaginary says, "Nyan, yeah."
Nyan.
Oh man. Okay, so that was Gunmeister Online. Annie and I will be starting production on that one April 12th, probably. And so yeah, expect it sometime in May on audio. All right, and we got one last request. We're going long on this one, but I don't mind because I'm having fun. Charles Dean's weird story that he wrote. So yeah, if you guys want to check this one out, it's on the link is in the description below. Oh, by the way, all the links to all the books that I've been reading are in the description below. If you guys want to go check them out on Amazon, or in the case of Morningwood and Fizzle Sprocket, you'll find the Audible link. Okay, so I don't know what to say about this except Charles is a twisted fucker. You sure this is going to work? Oh, wait. I need to close this again. It just sounds way better if you're on headphones. You sure this is going to work? Jesse asked as he handed Thomas a wrench. It has to work. I can't take it anymore, Thomas answered, grabbing the wrench from Jesse's hands without even sparing his friend a glance. He had been working on this machine for 4 years, and he was just making a few last-minute tweaks now. The fruits of his labor were finally in sight. You realize how screwed up this is? How screwed up you are? I can't believe you're doing this. You don't even know if it'll work. If it doesn't, what's the worst that could happen? You could die, be turned into a giant fly, find yourself as a slime or goblin in another world, end up transformed into a girl? I don't know. You read manga and hentai, right? This is where things go wrong. You could learn from the great books of wisdom and apply that mind to something more productive. Thomas paused his tinkering and popped his head out of the large cylindrical device that occupied half of his room, a contemplative look on his face. Yeah, dying seems plausible if this fails. Who knows? I could be teleported into a vat of lava. Nowhere at all, or even bleeped out of existence on every time continuum. But the rest of that seems like nonsense. This is a device meant to change my location in the space-time continuum, nothing else. It's a time travel device, not a gender-changing, goblin-morphing giant fly-making machine, he said after a minute, then shook his head and went back to work. And you're not worried about dying? Or never seeing your handsome friend, me, again? I mean, it's kind of crappy that you're ditching me over such a stupid reason. Want to escape the shame of rejection after Quinn dumped me, and not wanting to do something inappropriate with my 35-year-old sister are not stupid reasons to want to escape into the future. How hard is it to just not hook up with your sister, really? I mean, I know she's attractive. She's so beautiful that even I have to go home early when she comes around. But seriously, how hard is it to control yourself? Thomas popped his head out, his face covered in dread. I grabbed them last week. I grabbed them and she didn't do anything. I can't be here. This is going to escalate in the wrong direction way too quickly. Jesse blinked. You what? You grabbed them? How does that even happen? Don't tell me you fell on top of her. That situation never occurs in real life. Don't lie. I just couldn't stop staring. And I reached my hand out, and before I knew it, I was holding on to them.
They were so soft I thought I was in a dream, until she smacked the hand away after a few minutes and told me to stop teasing her. Stop teasing her? Yeah, bro. Stop teasing her is all she said. I thought she'd slap me, hit me, tell me off, but she just stood there. I need to get out of here before I do something dumb, Thomas insisted. That is bad. But couldn't you just move towns? Don't you think time traveling is a bit much? Well, I mean, I'm also time traveling. Can you imagine the VR games in the future? The foods, the medicines. I'll get to skip 20 years of waiting and see the world of tomorrow today. So there is that. But you'd still be leaving me high and dry, Jesse moped. Who am I going to hang out with when I finally get to college in a few years? Thomas came out of the machine altogether this time. He wiped his hands clean and put one on Jesse's shoulder. Leaving you? Who do you think is going to take care of me when I get into the future? I'll need your help more than anyone to find a job, catch up on all the changes, and adjust to a harsh new life. I'll be counting on you then more than I count on even my parents now. Thomas did his best to reassure Jesse. Just pick me up at this location. He handed Jesse a piece of paper with a date and location on it. And make sure to bring some food. This process should leave me starving. Baka, Jesse muttered, kicking the floor and pulling at his usually over-baggy clothes. You never understand. Understand? What is there to understand? Thomas wondered as he packed a bag of clothes and stepped into the machine. Jesse, I'm sorry I have to leave you for now, but I'll be with you shortly, and then it'll just be you and me against the world. There is no one I'd rather be with in the future than you. Trust me on that. Jesse didn't say anything in return, just gave Thomas one of his coy smiles and blushed as Thomas shut the door and turned on the machine. Thomas stared at the console of the time machine in front of him, his greatest creation. He had given up weekends, his social life, cram school, and even a countless number of dinners as he researched and put together this amazing creation. It's finally time, he said to no one in particular. The chamber was airtight and wouldn't let any sound out, so it's not like Jesse could hear him. Let's do this! He steeled his nerves, set the date for 20 years in the future and the location to the one he had given Jesse on the piece of paper, and pulled the lever. While he was very confident in his work, he still was concerned about the incredibly real possibility that he'd die, or that nothing would happen. He wasn't sure which outcome would be worse, as he hadn't put any planning or effort into making sure he would have a life if it didn't work. The machine roared to life. The lights inside, white bulbs, went out and the interior became illuminated with pulsing blue electricity instead. The pulsing grew stronger, and he felt a strange sensation as the blue electricity sparked out and started connecting with his skin through his clothes. The metronome of electric pulsing continued to speed up, and the strange blue electric currents began connecting to him even more frequently, the lightning-like tendrils burning away his clothes as his eyes lit up with excitement. Yes! Yes, it's working! Thomas shouted like a mad scientist from within the chamber as he felt his body being imbued by the ever-growing current, unfazed by the fact he was now stark naked and the rations and clothes he had prepared had been shredded to pieces by the blue electricity. It's working! Boom! The metronome, which had been speeding up its pulsing at an exponential rate, reached a frequency at which it was impossible for Thomas to even follow the beat, and then it just exploded in a blindingly blue light that enveloped anything and everything inside the capsule. Success! Thomas said as the light faded. Now, to see where we are. Thomas continued talking to himself as he activated a mapping system he had built into the device to make sure that, should he have landed in some apocalyptic wasteland, he would be alerted to any potential danger. This is odd. Thomas frowned. He wasn't supposed to be at a nice, neutral location, a mountain hiking trail where he was hoping no one would build... Oh, he was supposed to be at a nice, neutral location,
a mountain hiking trail where he was hoping no one would build anything. Instead, the mapping sensors showed that he was still in his room in the mansion of a home he had grown up in. In fact, it was still showing one humanoid outside the capsule staring at the machine. Did it fail? Really? Thomas's hopes and dreams were shattered. Did I put in all that effort for nothing? No, this can't be. It had to succeed. This... Damn it! Fuck, shit, cunt, bastard! Thomas kicked the machine. You piece of shit! I gave you everything! Thomas lost his temper and hit the console of the machine a few more times before regaining his cool. Wait. It might just not have warped me. I might still be in the future, he told himself, praying to the gods of technology that it was only a dud in some aspects, not all of them. Well, Jesse, time to see if you waited for me, Thomas said, opening the door to greet whoever it was standing outside staring at the machine. When the door opened, though, he realized quickly that he wasn't in his room. Rather, he was geographically in his room, and the room was the right shape, but other than the giant time machine cylinder and the man staring at him, it was empty. All right, hold on, guys. I have to figure out who this person is before I can voice them. Oh, no.
Did you read ahead?
Yeah, I'm reading ahead, and I'm trying to... Oh, no! Oh, no! Okay. Amazing, the man said, as Thomas stepped outside and looked around him. I've definitely traversed time. Thomas didn't want to say more than needed since he was no longer alone. He had a bad habit of talking to himself out loud, so anytime someone was around, he worked extra hard not to voice his thoughts where they could hear. But when exactly am I? This is astounding. What luck. The man pushed forward, putting a hand on each one of Thomas's shoulders as he stared straight into Thomas's eyes. Thomas didn't know what to say. Sorry for crashing into your house. Don't worry about that. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you got here. After seeing this, after seeing such a magnificent display, I must have you, the man proclaimed. Huh? Thomas backed up, knocking the man's hands off his shoulders. Don't be like that. You clearly came here for me, and I'm here for you. I've seen what you're capable of. I've seen you in your full glory, and I won't take no for an answer. I must have you, right here, right now. The man's enthusiasm as he said such embarrassing words caused Thomas to want to vomit. What's wrong with you? Are you kidding me? What do you mean, my glory? Thomas asked, confused at what had prompted the man's reaction, when he suddenly became aware again of the fact he was naked and his glory was swinging back and forth as it pointed from one knee to another. Oh, God, no. Wait, no, I'm not like that, Thomas protested, trying to close the door and separate himself from the crazy man. Don't be like that! Why else would you be here showing off such amazing equipment if you weren't after my interest? The man said as he extended a hand and blocked Thomas from closing the door. Oh, God, I know I have great equipment, but... No, stop! This is not happening! Thomas's urge to upchuck his last meal rose like the bile in his stomach. I don't even know who you are, Thomas said, pulling harder at the door handle, hoping he could overpower the man. But to no avail. If you insist on playing shy, then that's fine with me. I'm Harry,
And you don't have to play hardball. I'll pay whatever it takes to have you. Just tell me, and I'll make you mine right now." The man's iron determination was both impressive and revolting. Harry, wait. That's my dad's name, but he's so young. Oh, no. The wheels in Thomas's mind started turning. I didn't go forward in time. I went back. Thomas's eyes shot open as happiness momentarily overtook him when he realized that his device was successful. He wasn't sure how time travel backward was possible, since theoretically it shouldn't be at all. Nevertheless, not only had the machine worked, it had done the impossible. That momentary happiness didn't last long, though, as his dad grabbed onto his forearm and pulled. "That's it. You know how powerful I am, right? Now show me everything you can do. Give me your best." Ah! Thomas had to swallow down some vomit as his overeager dad pulled at him while spouting such gay lines. No, I'm not a homo! Please, don't! Thomas smacked his dad's arm aside. Ugh, how could this get any worse? I'm in this world for 2 minutes, my dad is already trying to rape me. What the hell? I thought you were straight. Don't you have mom? Why are you being so homo? Thomas complained, his angry thoughts being the only thing that prevented him from throwing up all over the advancing man. Gay? What are you talking about? I just have to have you for my company. I've never seen such amazing technology. How'd you get it to just teleport here? Come on, show me the inside. Show me everything, Thomas's dad said, using his strength to pull Thomas out of the device before making his way inside. This is astounding. How long did it take you to build? Huh? Thomas blinked. Oh, that's right. Dad was able to afford this giant mansion to begin with because of his innovations in the tech world. He's a techie, so... Okay, that makes sense. Thomas let out a breath of relief, finally feeling safe enough to relax and stop tensing his muscles defensively. He's not after any flower of mine, but... Thomas looked at his dad as the man went through the machine, poking around and playing with the console as if he was a kid opening Christmas presents. I suppose I will need a job and a source of income, a place to live, and some identification if Jesse isn't waiting around to take care of me. Thomas began thinking aloud again. That's no problem, none at all. I'll take care of everything. I'll pay whatever it takes. You need a place to live? Live here. Just work for me. Make more things like this. Teleportation. This is every man's dream. Can you imagine what we'd be able to do with this? His dad, like usual, couldn't help himself as he carried on inspecting the device. It's not teleportation, though, and I think I broke it. Thomas shook his head as he went into the machine and pulled a piece of console off. It was his super smartphone. He had built it into the device. It was designed to tap into hundreds of different potential transmission methods, capable of picking up everything from a ham radio to the newest LG 9 from his own timeline. This is broken? It's not teleportation? His dad asked. Then what is it? No, wait, don't tell me. I'll figure it out. Just let me find my tool belt, he said, standing up and dusting off his hands. Before you do that, can I get some clothes? Thomas wasn't one for modesty, but standing butt naked in an empty room with a young version of his dad, one who had moments ago spouted off lines that sounded like he wanted to have the worst kind of relationship with him, left Thomas with a strong desire for any form of protective fabric, even if the style would be nearly 20 years outdated. Hold on. The room is completely empty. That means they just moved in. When did my parents move into this place? I think I was 1 or 2 years old when they brought up this giant home for us. Thomas began trying to logic out more pieces of when he was and what was going on around him. Clothes? I think the wife just unpacked my clothes. You're about my size. I'll just get you a spare set of mine on my way to the tool belt, if that's okay, his dad said,
Leaving the room so quickly, Thomas didn't even have a chance to object. Sure, that works fine. Take your time. Thomas frowned at the door as it closed. A few moments passed, and his dad returned with a nice dress shirt, some slacks, underwear, and a belt. After he changed, while his dad was still going through and poking around at his time machine, Thomas sat back and started browsing through his smartphone. It had managed to hack into the nearest Wi-Fi, and he was now catching himself up on current events. He had wondered if perhaps he hadn't traveled back in time, but rather sideways into a separate timeline. But if that was the case, then it would be impossible to tell. Everything matched up perfectly with his own timeline's history. And my smartphone has the next 17 years of this world's history perfectly recorded, so I guess I can now be the ultimate fortune teller. I could make a fortune with the stock market, even if I don't work at my dad's company. Honey, I know you're eager to finish setting up Thomas's nursery room, but you really need to put down the tool belt and come to dinner. I'll get cold if you wait too long. It'll get cold if you wait too long. Oh, wait, shit. That's his mom. Honey, I know you're eager to finish setting up Thomas's nursery room, but you really need to put down the tool belt and come to dinner. It'll get cold if you wait too long. He heard his mom's sweet, gentle voice pierce through the door. Ugh, his dad grumbled, dropping the metal plate he had just taken off the machine and standing up. Coming, dear, he yelled back as he dusted himself off. You too. I don't want you leaving my side until I have an employment contract with your name on it. Thomas was fine. Okay, let me see how much longer this thing is. Okay, this thing's super long in comparison to the rest of the stuff, so I'm going to find a good place to stop, and then I want to continue on a later request only because I really like this. It's hilarious. Thomas was fine with going down and eating with them. The problem was, she'll be there. And she'll be my age now, he gulped. His sister, Michelle. Had been hard enough to avoid staring at and ogling when she was middle-aged. Now that he was about to face her tight, young, voluptuous teenage figure, Thomas was beyond nervous. There is no way I can control myself. I don't know if that's a good idea. I think I need to fix that, so what? You can portal back to where you came from? Not a chance, young man. His dad grabbed onto his arm and started dragging him into the hall and down the stairs toward the kitchen. Don't even think about escaping. You and me are going to change the world together, and I won't have you disappearing on me. But my machine, Thomas protested with the only excuse that he could think of. He was pretty sure saying, but I don't want to meet your daughter because I'm afraid I'll try to bang her and I'm actually your son, wasn't an excuse that would ever be taken seriously. As he tried to pull back, his dad's freakish old man strength had none of it. He just yanked Thomas forward effortlessly. I know how hard it is to leave a project in the middle of working. How do you think I feel right now? I'd love to be playing with that beautiful equipment of yours, caressing its hard and soft parts, gently wooing every piece of information I can find out of it as I explore the innermost dark chambers of its unexplored regions. But dinner is ready, and it's rude to ignore family obligations. His dad's language just now sounded far too suggestive. Okay, I'm going to stop there, guys. Oh my God. Charles, you have created a monster.
This kind of feels like a blog post that he meant to make private, but then accidentally got made public, and then someone submitted it to be read out.
No, I think he requested it. I think he requested it, so it's totally safe. Not quite safe for work. I don't know. Is it NSFW? Not really. There's no like graphic stuff happening, as far as I know. I might have to read the whole thing to know in the future if it will be. But that's our show for today. What?
That story was like a car crash in slow motion. It's like, it's headed, horrible things are happening, but you cannot look away. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, I'm very impressed. It's extremely disturbing. Okay, so that's our show for today. This is Sound Booth Theater Live, requests only. Please, everyone, vote for the second part of this story. Danny, will you please put it in the requests? Ayano Imaginary says Charles has dark secrets. Oh man. Oh man. Okay, so yeah, anyone how many people requested free audiobooks? I hope we got to 5. But yeah, I'll actually, oh no. I can't go any further up. There's like a limit to how far up you can go in the chat, so I hope like Danny was keeping track. But if not, sorry. But if so, thank you guys for requesting the codes, and you'll be getting your books later tonight. So yeah, I don't know when I'm gonna have the next Sound Booth Theater Live. It's not gonna be next Sunday because I have a bunch of stuff to do. But possibly the next Sunday. We'll see. We'll keep you updated. Everybody, make sure to visit soundbooththeater.com. Get on the mailing list. You can see our previous videos there, and all of our upcoming and newest releases are listed. Pretty soon, we're going to have a new article written by a LitRPG author about audiobooks. If you haven't read Michael Ryan Soileau's article, I think it's pretty good. It's about what makes good audiobooks, in his opinion, what makes a good narrator. And yeah, I think that's about it. Cherry Blossom Girls is almost done. We'll be submitting it hopefully tomorrow, maybe Tuesday. You guys have been eating it up on Kindle, so I'm sure you're excited to hear that with the entire Sound Booth Theater crew on it. And yeah, that's about all I got for today. So thank you, Neven, Iliev. Is that right? Iliev? Yeah.
Just give up. You're never gonna get it.
I'm never gonna get it. Thanks, Neven, for hanging out with us and for your awesome books. And thank you, James Baldwin, also for joining us. And thank you, Sin, for joining us. I hope you guys had fun. I hope everyone watching had fun. And yeah,
So much fun.
And watch the Facebook group for the next poll and make sure to vote. So, see you guys later.
Bye.